What's up guys, this is Sound Alchemist, and I welcome you back to the fourth and final part on the burning of Prospero. So let us dive into the ending, the conclusion, the epic clash between the Thousand Suns and the Space Wolves. Ahriman pulled everyone back further to the final line in front of the Pyramid of Photep. Briefly having one time to assess his forces, the chief librarian realized that barely 1,500 suns still lived, and this pyramid was also crammed full with the surviving citizens, the last survivors of a lineage of scholars that descended from the old knight. With the narrower perimeter and a heavy cover, the suns were able to briefly hold off the resurgent space wolves, but just before the wolves unleashed their terror troops, figures that at first glance the Thousand Suns thought were giant wolves, but then realized that they were also partly armored marines. The Wolfen had burst into the Thousand Suns line, causing havoc and many deaths throughout. With the approaching howl of Leman Russ himself, the echoing in their ears, Ahriman and all the others prepared to meet their deaths. This, however, did not come to pass, for Magnus, watching all the while, finally decided to enter the battle. No longer able to watch the slaughter of his children and the destruction of his works, Magnus descended from the Pyramid of Photep with lightning, fire, and rain, slaying the Wolfen explosively and driving the space wolves back with the ferocity of a spearing thunder god. Magnus attacked the space wolves with telekinetic energy, shards of glass, and he slayed thousands with a baleful gaze of his eye. He then began to detonate their armored vehicles with bolts of energy from his staff. From where Magnus descended, the sky split asunder, the very essence of the warp leaking into real space. Hundreds of eyes gazed down from the crackened space-time, driving any who gazed back at them insane. As the space wolves pulled back before Magnus's overwhelming display of power, only Leman Russ and his two wolf companions, Frecky and Gary, stood unmoved. As Magnus made his way to confront the Wolf King before his pyramid, he slowed down time long enough to issue his last order to Ahriman, that his chief librarian and most gifted student would need to retreat inside the pyramid and report to Amon, his equerry, in order to receive guardianship of the Book of Magnus. Magnus had foreseen that Ahriman would survive this day, but he believed himself destined to fall, and with that, the Crimson King engaged Leman Russ in personal combat. Magnus generated a lightning cage around the two Primarchs so that no allies could disturb them, before blasting his brother with such energy. Apparently immune to such attacks, Russ closed with the Red Cyclops, striking enough blows on him that his breastplate cracked open. Staggering back, Magnus hit Russ with a blast of balefire that cracked his own armor and set light to his hair. Separated back out to weapon's length, Frostblade met Golden Axe as the two combatants dueled with each other. To all those watching, lit by lightning, drenched by bloody rain, and each impact echoing with thunder, the two kings seemed to swell with power and became as if giants among ants. The Adeptus Astartes and the Space Wolf forces sought to circumvent the duel and enter the pyramid, crashing across the moat in their eagerness. Magnus spotted this and with a single gesture turned the moat to bubbling acid, slaying and wounding all those caught within it. Shadowy hands then formed out of pools of standing water on the ground, reaching for those who returned to the moat or stayed by the edge, the wounded dragged down into the dark. As the warp storm in the sky continued to manifest, the earth shook and split, and it seemed as if Prospero and all upon her were damned. In the center of it all, Magnus and Russ continued to fight, Magnus battering the Wolf King with fists encased in lightning and fire. One of Magnus's mighty fists clove into Russ's chestplate above his heart, and he attempted the death punch, shattering it and sending ceramite shards deep into his body. However, Russ grabbed the offending arm and snapped it like a branch. Magnus speared his brother with a blade of pure thought, formed around his other hand. As Magnus held his brother transfixed and prepared to finish him off, the two wolf companions of the Primarch leaped at the legs of the Crimson King, sinking their jaws into his flesh. Staggering back in pain, Magnus dissipated his thought blade, so he then slammed his fist deep into the black-furred head of one of the wolves, bursting it apart and dropping it to the ground. Roaring in frustration and anger and pain, he grabbed the white-furred wolf with a thought and flung it far over the heads of the watching space wolves before turning his attention back to his brother. The two Primarchs continued their epic battle once again, and during this time, the Wolfen managed to cross the moat and meet up again with Ahriman. Just as the Wolfen were about to attack, a roar of agony came from above, followed by a second, separate, louder one, and all eyes were attentive upwards. Magnus had struck Lemanruss with a powerful, concentrated sorcerer's attack, wounding the Wolf King again, but also causing him to lash out randomly with his blade in response. The tip of his blade swept across Magnus's remaining eye. In that instant, after Magnus reeled back from this blow, any and all pyrotechnic effects surrounding the duel vanished. Magnus was grievously hurt, and he called upon the regenerative magic to heal his armored eye, but Lemanruss grabbed him, lifted him high, and broke his back across his knee. This sound echoed like a gunshot in the heart of every watching Thousand Sun. As Magnus fell to the ground, the sky wept oily tears for his fall. Magnus's mind linked with Ahriman, and he revealed his last gift. As Russ brought his flossblade Mjolnir down in a fatal arc, Magnus used Ahriman as a conduit to enact his last part of a great master spell that he had prepared. With those words of power, Magnus and all the Thousand Suns instantly vanished from the surface of Prospero. Mjolnir smote the ground where Magnus had lain. The Space Wolves had won, but the Thousand Suns had escaped execution as well. Magnus had no choice but to teleport the 1,242 surviving Thousand Suns to the planet of sorcerers in the Eye of Terror. Magnus himself had transformed into a being of etheric energy and now served a new patron, the unholy Tzeentch. Now that Prospero was devoid of all inhabitants, they continued to systematically destroy the entire surface of the planet, although at least one underground structure remained intact. But that is a story for another time, and that also brings us to the conclusion of the epic Burning of Prospero. Did you guys enjoy the epic battle between the two Primarchs? Perhaps you wanted Magnus to win, or maybe you were content with the Wolf's victory. Let me know in the comments down below. And also, thank you guys for staying to all these 4 parts. They really are an epic that you guys need to go through. And because of that, I have created a playlist for your enjoyment. So, share this video so all your friends can learn about this epic 30k history. Don't forget guys, we do have a Patreon page. So head on over there, where a simple $1 gives you more epic 40k content. And as always, I am the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I am signing out.